I had to get to that point of like bottom out of my only faith, my only hope, my only strength was God.
No matter what your background or situation in life, just to know that there's somebody out there who's got your back.
My view of myself and what I'm able to do and capable of and the lives I'm able to change only comes from the strength and glory of God.
You can't necessarily fight a thought with a thought. You have to fight thoughts with words.
Right.
And you have to be renewed by, or be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
What I realized was, just like anything in life, consistency is key.
Yes.
Like, you need to be in the Word daily. You need to be doing devotionals. You need to be praying multiple times a day.
The men that God's needed us to get around have just like presented themselves, or like the doors have opened and crazy connections have happened to where it's like, hey, I need you to go to another level, so here's another man for you to attach your wagon to.
Jesus.
It's the Lord. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Basement 212. Super excited for what we've got for you today. Today we have our first guest speaker, and we are super excited. Michael Lounsbury here in the studio with us, and super excited to give you guys access to him. He's got a really cool story, but not only that, just the things that he's overcome in his life and the things that he is beginning to see produce fruit in his life from those struggles and from the seed that he's been putting in the ground over the past like 6 to 12 months is really, really neat. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much. So honored to be here.
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you. When Corey, kind of told me a little bit about your story, it just kind of piqued my interest, because I know you and him know each other, but you and I don't know each other quite as well. And so just, the things that Corey told me you've been through, / when you and I have spoken on the phone and gotten to know a little bit of your story. I mean, some of the stuff that you've been through is like super deep. And I really think that some of the people that listen can potentially gain some wisdom and some knowledge and some nuggets from that kind of stuff. So why don't we start with this? Why don't we have you do maybe 2-3 minutes, 4 or 5, whatever, not necessarily on a time crunch, but just give these guys a short snippet of where you're from, who you are, maybe a couple of the struggles that you've been through, but then like where you're at now, and then we'll kind of piggyback and jump back and forth a little bit.
Perfect. So a lot of people don't know this about me because people just know me as the tall guy that's always happy. You know what I mean? Always just taking selfies and doing those type of things. But what they don't know is I was actually born in Sandusky, Ohio. So I'm a family of 7, 2 moms, 5 different dads, grew up in poverty. We didn't have beds for everyone. We didn't have meals every night. Both mom and dad were extremely abusive, mentally, physically. I got married and divorced 3 times. I don't understand that logic at all. And, my father at an early age had told me I should take my own life. And my mother had told me that was the reason she started drinking. And I was really confused about that. And anyway, as I grew up, my mom went to jail, so I went to live with my dad. And that was in North Carolina. And at the time, he was married to a woman who was closer to my age than his own. So that caused issues for my sister and I to where we weren't able to be in the same room as them. We weren't able to eat with them. We weren't able to go on vacations with them. We weren't even able to go grocery shopping with them. So we had to wait till they got done eating. And then if those stuff left, my sister and I could eat. So that proceeded until my dad ended up actually going to jail. So then I didn't know what I was going to do. So at the time, even to this day, I have a lot of self-worth issues, right? Just growing up the way I did. And I didn't grow up in a Christian household. My mom believed in witchcraft. My father was an atheist. And so I didn't know about God. I didn't know about God until high school. Then I had a friend tell me about God, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a heavenly Father that actually cares about me, that loves me. Long story short, I ended up in the military. And I was like, if I don't go do something else, I'm going to end up not being here. And so with that being said, went to the military and I met my ex-wife. So 2 months in, we got married, divorced. After 7 years, I have an 8-year-old son on the spectrum. And then fast forward to last year, Helene hits, right? So at the time, my lawyer was actually the mayor of a town that got destroyed by Helene. So when I went to court in January of this year, 2025, I represented myself and I lost very, very badly. So I get this letter March of this year saying, Mr. Lounsbury, you owe your ex-wife $16,000 by June 9th. Again, we're in March, so it's 3 months, or else you're going to jail for 10 years until you can pay it back. Again, at the time, I was already paycheck to paycheck. And so I got really mad at God. And I said, God, why me? I've been through all this in my life. I thought that was enough, And then I finally came to terms of, I'm not better than anyone. So if God wants me to serve in jail, I'll serve in jail. So I rectified that situation. I got comfortable in it. And then, I told my fiance, I said, hey, when I go, we're done. I love you so much, but we're done. I'm not going to put you through this. And I had been fighting the VA for a long time. And 5 days later, I get approved. And from that, I get back pay. And from that, it covered the exact amount of money that I owed my ex-wife to not go to jail. So at that point, I was like, all right, God, I'm not supposed to go to jail. And I'm on the right path of where I'm supposed to go. But I had to get to that point of bottom out of my only faith, my only hope, my only strength was God. Mm-hmm. And then from that, I vowed, again, I'm a tall guy, 6'7", if we haven't met, and I vowed that I would be a beacon of light, not for my glory, but for his.
I think it's really cool because I think until, as men especially, women too, but as men, until we can get to that place where we're at the end of our rope, and we all know what that's like. I think unless you've been there, maybe you don't. But I think there's this place where you're kind of oh, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm at the end of my rope. But until you're in that special place that really only people who have been there know, you really don't know what the end of your rope looks like. So that's cool that you were able to, I hate that you had to go there, but I'm glad that when you got there, you didn't just let go.
Right.
You decided to say hey, okay, I'm going to climb on your back. You got me.
Right. Exactly.
So that's cool. So tell everybody a little bit about what are you doing now? What do you got going on? Of course, guys, we'll kind of pop up his Instagram handle, Facebook page, all that kind of good stuff as well. So you guys can go follow him in his journey. But tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing now and kind of what those organizations do / what you're excited about.
Absolutely. So in order to better understand what I'm doing now, I need to tell you a little backstory.
Okay.
So when I first went to the military, I went Air Force and I was trying to go PJ. Mm-hmm. In order to get to the medical part, you have to pass the physical preliminary. I passed them. I go to the medical part. I find out I'm colorblind. I'm 19 at this point. I had no idea my entire life. So I'm red-green colorblind. Christmas is confusing. We won't get into that. Anyway, so I had asked them, I was like, that's fine. I need to go because I'm homeless. 6 months go by and they're not able to place me anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I told my recruiter, I said, hey, please discharge me. I'll go Army. Nice guy, knew my situation, was like, all right, I got you. So I get discharged. I go right next door to the Army recruiter, and he goes, well, your SF trained will send you infantry. I said, absolutely, that sounds great, but I'm colorblind. He said, that's fine, don't tell him.
That's great.
So anyone listening knows that is an Army recruiter, 100%. So I go to MEPS, and they find out I was colorblind. They send me back, and he goes, all right, man, I'm trying to help you out. I know your situation. You have 3 options. He goes, you can be supply, cook, or HR. I was like, well, I guess I'm about to be the most fit HR that this Army's ever seen. So I went HR. And I got out of the Army and I realized I really loved HR, but I'd never done it on the civilian side. And so I started out, it was hard to start out because in 2017, it was predominantly women, right? I'm a 6'7", recently separated Army veteran. They did not want me. They're like, he's going to be aggressive. He's not going to be empathetic. He won't be able to understand. So it took 6 months for me to get a generalist position. Then over the next 7 years in 4 companies, Hertz being one of them, I went from HR generalist to chief human resource officer. And I realized that corporate America, HR specifically, we were just the bad guys. We were the red tape. We were the Grim Reaper in the tower, just, hey, you don't want to go see them. So I realized that I wanted to make a difference. So that's when I started PeopleOps Advisors, which is a nationwide HR consulting firm for small businesses and nonprofits that maybe can't afford or don't have an HR yet. And that's where I come into play and do a tailored approach. So I have that going on. And then I'm also a speaker. I'm also a published author. And kind of as we're talking about this, you can see where the heart from my background, I like to empower and encourage those who maybe go through something similar to know that they're not in it alone and that we serve a loving God.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important for no matter what your background or situation in life, just to know that there's somebody out there who's got your back.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. So moving on from all this, super excited for what you've got going on. Again, guys, go follow, kind of join the story. I think it'll be really cool for you guys to just get plugged in with what he's doing and maybe learn a little bit along the way. But you mentioned something when you were first talking, and it's something that I really care about and something that I think you could probably touch on a little bit more, but that was self-worth. And maybe just kind of talk a little bit about your upbringing, how you saw yourself. You know, I know you had said this stuff about your dad, your mom, right? How maybe they had viewed you. Maybe talk just a little bit about like how that affected how you saw yourself. But then once you found the Lord, how that began to kind of like shift a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great topic for me specifically. So growing up, again, my self-worth was below the ground. I was not worth the dirt that I walked on.
Yeah.
I was stupid. I was ugly. I was fat. I wasn't going to be successful. I wasn't going to make a difference. I wasn't going to make a change. I wasn't going to be able to do anything with my life. Like, that's how I grew up. That is how I grew up. And that really messed me up. That really messed me up to the point of, you know, I have attempted to take my own life because I figured nobody wants me here.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anybody any good. And I even had this after I had my son. And I had gotten to such a low point to where I felt he's better off without me. He deserves a real man. He deserves someone who is going to love him and treat him right. And I'm not that guy. And I still struggle a little bit with that to this day. It's not like I found Jesus and, you know, it was fixed. However, it's a different perspective of, okay, I have a father, not an earthly father, but I have a heavenly father who sent his only son to die on the cross for me specifically. He would have done it if it was just for me and me alone.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And to know that someone who created everything loves me that much, then it just changed my perspective of, okay, yeah, you can beat yourself up. You can be your own worst critic, but God placed you here for a reason. And there's a purpose and there's a story, and everything that I went through, everything that I went through, the poverty, the abuse, I'm able to relate to a lot of people. And I feel that is ultimately my bigger mission, is to share that story and to tell people I understand. Because if you haven't been through that, you're not able to relate as much.
Right.
But yeah, no, self-worth and imposter syndrome, especially for entrepreneurs, that is a real thing. And especially as men, we don't want to talk about it.
No.
You know, and so there has been a significant change. Again, I won't say I don't struggle here and there. We're all human still to this day. But my view of myself and what I'm able to do and capable of and the lives I'm able to change only comes from the strength and glory of God.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, I think there's a difference between maybe how the world views us and how God views us. Huge difference. And when you really start to dig in and take those things on as your identity, it begins to change your mind, right? The Bible's very specific. You can't necessarily fight a thought with a thought. You have to fight thoughts with words.
Right.
And you have to be renewed by, you know, or be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Absolutely.
And I think there's so much scientific evidence out there now. It's funny to me how like science is having to catch up with the Bible. I always think that's funny. You know, it's like there's certain things like that specifically. There's a really good book out there called Switch on Your Brain. It's by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she talks about like neuroplasticity. And that's what she's a neuroscientist. It's what she's done her whole life. She went to school for it, PhDs in it, crazy, right? But she's also a Christian. And she just talks about how it's so funny that like that science is having to catch up with the Bible in the sense of your brain is plastic. And what you've been told by family, you know, friends, whoever it is as you're growing up, isn't what you have to always believe about yourself.
Right.
And you can change those things by taking the time to speak the right things over yourself, read the right things, hang out with the right people. It sounds like that's what you've done and what you're continuing to do. Because I'm the same way as you. I have to fight daily, like what, you know, because the negative thoughts want to creep in.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like, okay, well, what do we do with those?
Right.
Do we capture those and then cast them down before the throne of the Lord? Or do we take them as truth and hold on to them?
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And then you made another point that I kind of wrote down really quick, but you talked about how And that's, I guess, a piece of that too, is it's not instantaneous.
No.
It's not necessarily something that like you think you're a piece of dirt one day,
Right.
and then the very next day you never think you're a piece of dirt again.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about what did that process look like for you, or what were some things that you did in your personal life to begin to change those thought patterns?
So as a newer Christian, right? I was, I don't know, 16, 17 when I came to Christ. There's always that thought of, oh, Christians don't make mistakes. Christians are perfect. Christians don't struggle with sin, right? And what I realized was, just like anything in life, consistency is key.
Yes.
Like, you need to be in the Word daily. You need to be doing devotionals. You need to be praying multiple times a day. So for example, and I love this, every morning I wake up, I start the day with a prayer. And every night I go to bed, I pray talking to God. Like, I fall asleep every night talking to God. And it's crazy how fast I fall asleep. It's like, but that is where the consistency comes in. And it's not easy, but getting involved with your church, getting involved with a small group, getting an accountability buddy. Because if you don't have those things in your life, then it's very easy for it to go by the wayside and for that to just falter, right? Because you have a difference between practicing Christians and people who say they're Christians and have the belief, but then their actions don't show that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it really has been just being consistent. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times, even this past week, where I'm like, Michael, stop. Like, get that out of your head. You are blessed. You are loved. Like, it's okay. We're all human, and we have to give ourselves grace. And I can tell you, I am the worst person as far as that goes. I'll give everyone else grace. I will put you up on a pedestal. I will be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
But when it comes to myself, that's still from my upbringing, which isn't an excuse, isn't justification, but that's still really hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I am the first person to like beat myself up. And I'll beat myself up before anybody else. And it's funny because and it sounds like you're kind of the same way. We almost mask that in public by being the super positive people, right? And so when people look at us, they maybe think, oh, they're always positive. They're always got a smile on their face. I bet when they're at home, they have the best time in the world. And it's like, I'm at home on the couch thinking, what everything I did wrong today, I'm a terrible person, Right. And it's like, if someone could just get inside my head for a day, they'd be like, oh my gosh, this dude thinks he's the worst person on the planet sometimes, And so you really have to fight that. So I don't know about you. One of the ways that I've done that is by like using affirmation cards, right? And like writing down on index cards and having those on me all the time. I've literally got them in my book bag right beside me right now. Like, I am constantly speaking those things over me, like I'm kept in safety wherever I go. Jesus loves me. My wife and I have a great marriage. Just simple things that seem like maybe they're not like super broad or super deep, but it's like when you say those things enough, you start to believe them. I heard a funny statistic and story one time that the easiest way to stop smoking is to tell yourself you don't smoke, like even as you're lighting up a cigarette. And I think sometimes, like, how much different our world would be if in the middle of committing a sin, we tell ourselves that we don't do that sin, even as we're doing it, and it's like, well, why am I doing it if I'm saying I'm not doing it, know? And I think the same thing is true for ourselves too, like our personal lives is, then these thoughts come into our head of, I am dirt, or I'm not worthy, or I don't deserve this, but it's immediately changed because you've been telling yourself out loud over and over, like, no, I am worthy. And it just goes super quick.
So there actually is two things. So one, there's this app called I Am, and it's a free app. And I don't know why I didn't mention this, but 6 times a day, I get a I am. And what it says is Michael Lounsbury is loved. Michael Lounsbury is great. Like, you put your name in and it sends you this. And then the funny thing also as a man is I had to tell my fiance, like, the way you can show me love is I need affirmation. It's not like I want you to fill my head up, but it's like, no, I need affirmation, from you daily. And she's not a real big emotional person, so it's kind of funny our roles are reversed in that way. But, I'm like, just tell me I'm doing good. Tell me you're proud of me. Tell me, because really there's only a couple of people whose opinion matters to me. And you're one of those people. Yeah. So just let me know that you see that I'm trying. Yeah. I might not be succeeding, but I'm trying.
Yeah. And that's cool too, because it means that you guys have had to create a good communication base between the two of you, for you to be able to communicate with her like, hey, this is like, tell me what you need,
Right.
this is what I need, and then to be able to kind of act that out together, and know like, okay, well, this is what he needs, I'm gonna do this for him. My wife's the same way. It's funny because I think we're a lot more alike in the sense of mine and my wife's roles are reversed as well. Like, she's not very emotional. I'm super emotional. I'll cry watching the Arms of an Angel, dog commercial, whatever, like, in the arms, and I'm over there and Shirley's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just a puppy. So yeah, like, we're the same way. So like, she's very, she has to be mindful of doing the same thing for me.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. All right, so switching gears a little bit, let's kind of talk a little bit about like how the self-worth has maybe like merged itself with surrounding yourself with leaders. So I know specifically for me, and I'm sure the same is true for you, but surrounding myself with other men who have the same thought processes, well, maybe not thought processes, because it's always good to get around other men that are a little bit further along than you, but at least the same belief systems, right? And or maybe either already where you want to be or headed in the same direction. How important has getting around other men and leaders been as far as like where you're at now?
I think it's imperative. And the reason why I say that is I always say I want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
Always. Because if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I need to be around others who can test me, who can hold me accountable, who can challenge me, but also who can, grow me, who can help me in the right direction. So I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am today if I did not have that mindset and that perspective. That is key. So they always say it takes a village to raise a child, but I say it takes a village to do anything, to run a business, to be a, contributing member of society. It takes a village because you have to have those different perspectives, those different views in order to truly grow if you want to grow. Now that also depends on your heart, your intention, the genuineness of that. But no, that has been key. That has been imperative in my growth.
Yeah, I think the same thing's true for Corey and I. And it's so funny how, like, as we've grown, the men that we've needed to step up, or the men that God's needed us to get around, have just like presented themselves, or like the doors have opened and crazy connections have happened where it's like, hey, I need you to go to another level, so here's another man for you to attach your wagon to. And it's so funny, sometimes they're the same age as us, but like further on in life, and I'm like, what the heck, like this is crazy. But I think in those moments, and I had to do this pretty early on because, of how close in age Corey and I are, but how much I've allowed him to pour into my life, I had to let go of the ego really quickly. Because we're around the same age. We're both in our 30s. He's only like 3 years older than me. And so sometimes it can be kind of difficult to let other men speak into your life. Because as a man, we want to think we know it all.
Right.
And we want to be the guy with all the answers.
So you mentioning ego. So I read a book. I can't remember the name of the book. But the book said your ego, I'm military, we're a big acronym people. You know what I mean? But your ego should exalt God only. That's what your ego should do, right? And so sometimes as men, like you said, we have to humble ourselves and do a gut check and be like, okay, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not the smartest. I'm not the biggest. I'm not the strongest. Like, I have an opportunity. And another thing I always say is every interaction is an opportunity.
Correct.
Regardless of who you're meeting. Yeah. Every single interaction is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop, to find something you like, you don't like, a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so, same thing. I mean, and being a big guy and being a veteran, like, people just make assumptions of like, oh, you're just...
Yeah. You
got to check the ego. Got to check the ego at the door every single day and just be like, I am no better than no one, right? I'm here to serve. I'm here to love. And that's my goal. That's what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
So you talking about ego, that just, every time I hear ego now, I just think exalt God only.
Yeah, it's really good. I love that. And I think sometimes we get in this place where we want to, we don't even mean to, I don't think, but sometimes we get in this place or we accidentally find ourselves wondering what something can do for us, or what can I get from this, or, how good it makes me feel, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It's like one of the reasons we created the podcast was like, I don't necessarily, like, Corey and I don't care if the podcast, brings us any honor and glory. Like, great. If anything, if it promotes us at all, it's like it's going to promote us to be able to like share the gospel and share what's got us where we are.
Right.
And that's what we get excited about.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like I could care less. Like I hope the podcast helps plenty of people, and awesome. I hope that you notice me going down the street, because when you have the conversation with me, you're going to feel the joy and the love of Jesus.
Right.
You're not going to feel Brantley. You're going to feel Jesus.
Right.
That's what I get excited about. And I know that's what you're excited about too, with everything you've got going on, and, being able to impact, people across the nation. Because, it's kind of hearkening back to what you were talking about to begin with. Our nation's in a pretty tough spot right now, and I think it needs more men and women who understand these principles in order to get us back on track where we need to be. Yeah, but thank you, man, for coming on. Excited for what, you're doing, and appreciate you spending some time with us. But real quick before we leave, just maybe tell everyone where they can find you on socials, and then maybe some of your book titles and stuff like that.
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and my book titles. The first one that I'm published right now, it's called Never Accept Defeat, and it's a memoir about my life, how I grew up. You can tell by the title, Never Accept Defeat. You can find that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, some of the local bookstores. And then also, I'm about to be publishing my second book. It's called Trenches to Triumph. So be on the lookout for that one. It'll probably be on the same platforms. But again, if you follow my socials, you'll be able to see those and where those are coming.
Cool, man. Well, we're excited for you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. We're excited for next week, where we'll be talking about faith again. Until then, like, subscribe, do everything you need to do below. Go follow us on socials. And yeah, we're excited. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.